Welcome to the Morning Show, your wake up at Watches and Wonders. I'm Belle Donati and I'm delighted to have you with us this morning. Lots of brand announcements to start this week. We've rounded them all up into a short film for you. Let's take a look.
Let's get started with the new Black Bay Chrono. Almost everything is new here. It has a new case, thinner. It just required to rework the crystal, change a few bits and pieces, move the caliber to achieve a new case profile at 14.4 millimeter thin. It has a new dial, black and white, or is it white and black? Well, it looked so cool and sporty with the contrasted sub-counters that we decided to make them both available.
We would like to start now with the first and most important launch of the year, our Icon Master Grand Date.
That what? Limited edition. Oris's Change for the Better program is built on two key pillars. One is social, one is ecological. Oris plans to be climate neutral by 2021. The dial displays the lunar cycle and tidal range in the northern hemisphere via our own pointer moon function. On the case back, we find an engraving of the Wadden Sea and the moon that causes the tides.
This year we have new tambour curve watches. They also have a flying tourbillon function, but we added an additional function, which is a GMT indicator. For me, it really symbolizes the art of travel at Louis Vuitton.
Well, there you go. You're all up to date on those brand announcements. Let's take a closer look at them. We're joined to do that by Kristen Shirley. She's a freelance journalist. She's based in New York. Kristen, thanks so much for staying up for us this morning or last night for you.
Good morning, and last night for me, yes, hi.
We've seen a huge breadth of watchmaking on display there in that short film. Are you getting a sense of what watchmaking can do from that?
Absolutely. Today we're looking at brands that launched in the early 1900s all the way up to 2008. And these brands really show the variety of watches in the market today. There are lots of classic timepieces from brands like Tudor, Oris, and Maurice Lacroix, who tread the line between keeping their existing customers happy and enticing new collectors. This year, Tudor introduced new versions of its popular Black Bay chronograph, including 2 covetable vintage-inspired dials. Maurice Lacroix mixes modern and traditional in the new Icon Master Grand Date. It has some of the traditional dial decoration, but exposes part of the movement on the dial, which gives it an edgy look. Oris has a long-standing commitment to sustainability and conservation, and this year it released a limited edition timepiece that will raise both funds and awareness for the Wadden Sea, a UNESCO World Heritage Site in Northern Europe. Upstart brands like Nomos Glashütte and Rebellion bring new looks, fresh designs, and a fresh take on the idea of watchmaking in their releases. Nomos is known for minimalistic, clean dials and in-house movements. Rebellion, on the other hand, is inspired by the world of motor racing. The new Predator 2.0 three-hand has a bold, three-dimensional dial and comes in 6 different colors. And of course, brands like Louis Vuitton that started in fashion have made a big splash in the watch industry in recent years, thanks to their excellent craftsmanship across all métiers and large research and development budgets.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you get a sense that the pandemic, the sort of the unusual, the most challenging year that we've lived last year, has been reflected in some of those announcements?
Absolutely. You know, last year was a tough year for everyone, especially in the watch industry. It's not easy to work on big projects that require heavy machinery from home, after all. We've seen some groundbreaking timepieces, but also a lot of more subtle updates, whether that's incorporating complications from existing movements into new collections, adding new dial materials, adding new dial colors, or encased materials. For example, Nomos Glashütte brought its innovative date display from the Tangente collection into the Metro collection. Instead of a subdial or a date window that shows the date, there's a ring around the outside of the dial, which is really unique.
That's really interesting stuff. What about size? What trends are you seeing in size?
Well, there's been a lot of buzz in recent weeks about genderless timepieces. Some brands are slimming down case sizes to 35, 39 millimeters, which is considered sort of the sweet spot in unisex timepieces. But there's still a large market for large watches. All of the timepieces we just looked at today were over 40 millimeters. One was even a massive 48 millimeters. But where brands can, they're slimming down movements. So it's easier for watches to fit under your shirt sleeve so they don't feel as bulky to wear. Tudor was able to eliminate 0.5 millimeter from its new Black Bay chronograph.
That's really interesting. Thank you so much for talking us through that. Kristen Shirley there in New York, very late in New York, so thank you for staying up for us. It's time now for us to take a view from the top. We've got lots of news from brand bosses this morning. We're going to start directly with them, with Laurent Dordet, CEO of Hermès Horlogerie. He's joining us from the Bâtiment des Forces Motrices here in Geneva. Thanks so much for being with us this morning, Mr. Dordet.
Hi, Isabelle.
Hi. Now, this year, Hermès, as we've seen, in fact, in our first morning show, we saw your takeover of the iconic building, the Bâtiment des Forces Motrices in Geneva, the industrial hydro plant. What led you to take over any space, but particularly that space this year?
Oh, because when we understood last October that this digital edition would be only digital for Watches and Wonders, we immediately thought we should complement it with a physical presence. So indeed, we had 3 purposes in doing that. The first one was to set up here our Hermes booth as if we were in Palexpo with our friends, and that to showcase our scenography we prepared with 2 young artists as every year. So this year we're talking about the scenography around our new launch men watch called H08. It's a sportive watch, and so very much in connection with the Bâtiment des Forces Motrices, which is talking also about fluidity, about resistance, about energy. But the second purpose was really to welcome here all our friends that could come and join, and eventually, because of the pandemic, you can imagine we could only welcome some Swiss press, some Swiss retailers, and some Swiss final customers. And the third purpose was to set up here a huge TV studio to provide our friends abroad a human experience, so direct live for keynotes and press conferences, and not only limiting ourselves to sending recorded videos about products and talks. So I think it was quite appreciated.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there. I want to come on to the artists that you're using for, this week, but I'd like first to talk about you're going digital this year, because of course we've all had to go digital. How's that been for you?
You mean for the press or for the sales?
For both. I mean, we've had to go digital across the board.
Okay. So as you can see, for the press, we've had a tremendous effort with the other brands to adapt to the new situation. But as you say, 2020 has been a year of acceleration in everything, especially e-commerce, which is not new for Hermès, since we have been there since 2002. So almost 20 years that Hermès started in e-commerce, including the watches. But clearly 2020 was a year of acceleration, and our sales boosted last year on e-commerce, and definitely this trend is going to stay.
Absolutely, and of course we touched on the artists that you've had create your amazing scenography this year. Hermès has a tradition of working with artists since the beginning of its participation in Watches and Wonders. It's always worked with artists to create scenography for a new collection. Why is it that Hermès likes working with artists so much?
Because it's simply part of a Hermès spirit. We've always seen that bringing an artist creation brings strong support to your creation and products. By the way, we are doing that for events, but we are also doing that more simply with all our store windows that are every time created by artists. So, as you said, this year again, for Watches and Wonders, we have a fantastic scenography. This year we worked with two young French artists, Clément Vieille and Pierre Pose, who are graduated from Les Beaux-Arts and also Le Fresnoy School in France. And they decided, because they had to resonate with our main watch, with our sport watch, HO8, to talk about energy, fluidity, but also resistance and lightness. So they set up here a huge sculpture that is called a tensegrity sculpture, tension and integrity, and it is all about minimal weight and maximum resistance. So very much in connection with the watch. And we had also a film installation by Pierre explaining also energy and fluidity. So everything was connected, the watch, the scenography, but also the building.
We were so lucky because on the first show we actually we got taken through by Clément Vieille and Pierre Pose through the amazing installation. So thank you so much. We're getting a real sense of why Hermès works with artists. Laurent Dordet, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. Thank you so much, the CEO of Hermès Horlogerie there. And we've got more brand news from you. Our second interview of the day, this time with Nicolas Baretsky. He's the CEO of Montblanc, and he's speaking to us from Hamburg this morning. Good morning to you, Mr. Baretsky.
Good morning, Belle.
It's lovely to have you with us. Thank you. Now, having watched your brand announcements on the opening day of Watches and Wonders, we got a real sense of mountaineering. We got a real sense of storytelling. Reinhold Messner was there, was speaking for you as an ambassador. How important is storytelling for Montblanc?
Thank you for the question. First of all, good morning to all watch lovers. Actually, I think it's much more than a nice storytelling. First, it's the story of every watch collection at Montblanc that is inspired by a great watchmaking era at Minerva, one of our two manufacturers in Switzerland that is now over 160 years. And in the case of Reinhold Messner, who is our latest ambassador for our latest collection, the 1858 Geosphere limited edition, it's inspired by military watches. And military watches was a very famous era at Minerva in the 1930s, watches that were meant mainly for rough outdoor and for exploration.
And how is it
then
that
it's about...
I'm so sorry, I cut you off there. Do continue. Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, and it's about an authentic story, you know. At the end of the day, when we're talking to Reinhold Messner, he's not just any guy. He's the famous mountaineering alpinist that ascended the Everest without oxygen. He was the very first one. And this time we decided to go for another amazing story, which was the crossing of the Gobi Desert in 2004, more than 2,000 kilometers, a solo trek of Reinhold, and a very, very complex adventure. And at the end, it's also about aesthetic details, you know, it's the bronze that is related to the sun with a beautiful combination of the dials and an amazing new technology, laser technology, which is the case-back engraving, which in fact showcase the famous flaming cliffs in that Gobi Desert. So it's really a full package, you know, telling more than a story, but showcasing, in fact, what is the maison belief, which is basically accompany the clients for them to help them to deliver their full potential.
That's a wonderful way of storytelling. How do you choose your brand ambassadors? Is that idea of storytelling very much in your mind?
Absolutely. In fact, our brand ambassador, if you think about it, they are exactly in the same spirit. Maybe just mention one person who is the latest ambassador, who is Spike Lee, that we are using, for the brand campaign. And when you see Spike Lee in the movie talking about all his history, explaining to you that I don't type, I write, pen to paper, and all these very much inner stories for him, I think that's what moves us. And that's what we want to deliver as a message. Once again, we are a maison where we believe that we can help our people to leave their mark.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for talking us through that. Nicolas Baretsky there, the CEO of Montblanc. And we have not finished with the view from the top because we're still very lucky enough to be joined now by Wilhelm Schmidt. He's the CEO of Lange Söhne. He's joining us from Glashütte in Germany. Morning to you, Mr. Schmidt.
A very good morning to everybody.
It's lovely to speak to you. Now, of course, we're nearly at the end of Watches and Wonders. It finishes tomorrow. How has the week, the salon, been for you?
It's been great. You know, last year we had about 4 weeks on hands to prepare for an entire digital Watches and Wonders. This year we had more than 4 months, and from the feedback we received so far, I think people feel that difference. I still believe the one thing you can't do digitally is, you know, to take these wonderful watches, put them around your wrist for the first time, make it yours. But everything else, I think we covered pretty nicely.
Absolutely. I would absolutely agree with that. Now, Watches and Wonders, of course, has expanded its digital platform. As you said, last year there were only 4 weeks to prepare. This year, a lot longer to prepare. What has that expansion of the digital platform meant for you in terms of presenting your novelties?
You could go a lot deeper than last year because, as I said, we had a lot more time. If you prepare for a physical Watches and Wonders, you do that, of course, totally different to if you go digital. So if you go onto the Lange Experience Hub, you can really dive into the Maison. You can see watches, not only those that we launch, but also all the other watches. And our big theme this year is the subtle difference. And, you know, to explain subtle difference, you need a little bit more than just words. You need people, experts, collectors, designers to explain that to you. And I think that Experience Hub offers all that. And what I like the most is that you can make it your program. So you can dive into where you think that's important for me and I want to understand. And from what we've heard so far, the feedback is this is exactly exciting and people spend a lot more time there than they originally wanted to allocate, which I think is a great achievement.
That's really interesting feedback. Now, how has this new approach, this digital approach, gone down with your outside communication? Do you think you'll be continuing with this digital approach in the future?
For sure, you know, like last year where we had, after Watches and Wonders, several other launches. And that's what I said. I will not unveil what sort of watches we're going to launch for the rest of the year, but you know, we will use the Watches and Wonders platform for the remainder of the year to keep our society in touch with us. And the great is that in the meantime, we organize sort of hybrid. So we are here digital, but wherever that is possible, and there are countries around the world where physical meetings are possible, and that's where we do, you know, that nice little thing where you take the watch and put it around your wrist.
Well, we look forward to more of that. Thank you so much. Wilhelm Schmidt there, the CEO of Lange Söhne. Time now for us to look at the watching brief. Well, today's watching brief is all about complications. Let's first take a look at the watches.
The great art of fine watchmaking is expressed in the mastery of complications. With this timepiece, the Maison offers a dual time combined with a date and a flyback chronograph. This watch provides the local time with a solid luminescent hour hand and the home time with a pierced hour hand. The local time can be set forwards or backwards thanks to the pushers. The two time zones are completed by day and night indications. The flyback chronograph indications are displayed by the sweep seconds and the 60-minute counter at 6 o'clock. It can be started by the pusher at 2 o'clock and reset and reactivated by a single press on the pusher at 4 o'clock. These indications are completed by the date at 12 o'clock. The case is inspired by a porthole and is characterized by its octagonal bezel with softened angles. It houses a self-winding manufacture caliber. With its blue sunburst dial, this masterpiece is Patek Philippe's expression of sport chic. The chronométrie Ferdinand Berthoud creates exceptional watches in the tradition of this 18th century master watchmaker. The first skeleton movement of the house is no exception. It presents a regulator display of the time with the hours indicated on a disc at 2 o'clock next to the minutes dial at 12 o'clock. The seconds are displayed by a central hand on a sapphire inner bezel ring. The power reserve is indicated by a hand linked to flat levers and a spiral spring connected to the barrel. The tourbillon regulation system offers a bird's eye view inside the caliber. Visible on the back, the Fusée and chain transmission mechanism ensures the distribution of energy by delivering constant force to the tourbillon. The whole mechanism is an officially certified chronometer. For this collector's model, the house is launching only 20 movements with a choice between two casing, an 18-karat rose gold or a ceramized stainless steel. Corum's Admiral collection is celebrating its 61st anniversary. For the occasion, the brand presents this limited edition of 48 pieces. The special feature of this watch is its 45mm case made of carbon fused with gold inclusions. The dodecagonal bezel is made of the same material. This 10 ATM water-resistant case is extended on a rubber and synthetic textile strap with gold stitching. The automatic manufacture CO298 skeleton movement animates the time indications by central hands. To respect the perfect symmetry of the dial, the flying tourbillon and the barrel appear on the same vertical axis. The 72-hour power reserve indicator at 3 o'clock faces the 3-minute counter, an homage to the three founders of the Maison, Gaston Riss, René Banwart, and Simone Riss. With this new timepiece, Corum enters fully into the 21st century. Ulysse Nardin distinguishes itself by its original approach to watch complications. The 45mm titanium and rose gold faceted case is inspired by stealth aircrafts. Apart from a central hour and minute indication, this watch strikes the hour and the halves on passage or on demand by pressing the pusher at 10 o'clock. It is also equipped with a flying tourbillon presented at 6 o'clock. The watchmakers of the manufacturer have developed the caliber UN 621 with a striking mechanism visible through the dial. The shape of the gong has been designed to bypass the flying tourbillon cage. The gong is connected on the back to a 0.3 millimeter thick membrane to amplify the acoustic waves. At Ulysse Nardin, the devil is in the details. Since the revival of the brand in 1994, A. Lange Söhne has been known for its precision watchmaking with original display. In this 42mm rose gold piece, the hour and minutes are displayed in an off-centered dial. The small seconds is located at 7 o'clock and surrounds the astronomical moon phase display with an integrated day-night indicator. This model is enriched with a perpetual calendar. The outsized date is one of the Maison's signatures, and the days are pointed out by a retrograde hand at 9 o'clock. The months are indicated with a rotating ring on the periphery of the dial. Finally, the leap year appears in an aperture at 6 o'clock. The case houses the Lange manufacture caliber L021.3. With this piece, also available in a 150 limited edition with a white gold case and solid pink gold dial, A. Lange Söhne continues the great tradition of Saxon watchmaking. This model is the house's 7th record and presents the world's thinnest perpetual calendar. The 40mm diameter titanium case is water-resistant to 30 meters and is only 5.8 millimeters thick. It houses the 2.75mm thick BVL 305 manufacture caliber. The retrograde date is displayed above the axis of the hour and the minute. Months and days are placed in 2 independent counters. The leap year is indicated at 6 o'clock with a retrograde hand. The 110 faceted case of the Octo Finissimo has become a signature of the Maison. This perpetual calendar is available in 2 versions, with a titanium or platinum case.
Okay, well, that, I'm sure, has whet your appetite. We're going to dive into the detail. As ever, we're joined by Gianfranco in the studio. Morning to you, Gianfranco.
Good morning.
And by Carson, who's joining us from Shanghai. Morning, Carson.
Morning, how are you, Val?
Very well, thanks, Carson. I want to start with you, and at the beginning, with this Patek Philippe that was the first watch we saw there. What do you like about that one?
That's right. I have an idea for you. I think the Morning Show should buy this watch for me, because this watch is a GMT watch, is a traveler's watch, and I am here in Shanghai. It tells you simultaneously time of Shanghai and time in Geneva. I absolutely be the best spokesperson for the brand. So you guys should think about buying this watch for me.
I love that. Do you know what? I'll try and relay that. We'll see if that works. Carson, I've got a feeling it may not, but we'll try it. And now, of course, you're there talking. We can talk for the Patek Philippe about complications in terms of function, but there are other complications, aren't there, Gianfranco?
Obviously, yes. Let's continue this discovery with 3 visible tourbillons. And let's start with the Ferdinand Berthoud regulator, which offers us really well-visible tourbillon. And in the quest of accuracy, this one is even certified as a chronometer. And interesting is how the brand offers 20 movements, and it's up to the client to dress this movement with a case on his choice. Can be a round one or the octagonal one. Okay. And then we have the other visible tourbillon, which is the Corum Admiral 45, having a really well-visible flying tourbillon associated with a more, let's say, historical or more emotional complication related to the root of the brand's founders. And all that, it's perfectly symmetrical, so it's really a well-balanced tourbillon. And there is a third one, right, Carlson?
Yes, yes. The third one is the Unisys Nadan watch. Now, it's also a flying tourbillon, but different from those you've talked about is this flying tourbillon also has an open dial structure. Very interestingly, not only does it tell time in a traditional way, it also tells time with the sound, with the striking function. So when you push the button, the watch will actually chime and tell you the sound of it. Now, Bell says something very interesting. Under the complication family, we think about functionality, and also we think about beauty. Let me take you to the next watch. I think the beauty of this watch is in its functionality. It's the Lange 1 perpetual calendar.
Talk to us a little bit about that.
You will see all the details. It's telling you the date, the month, but I actually particularly like is the moon phase. I don't know if you know, this watch has a very, very accurate moon phase. Once you set the watch, once you set the moon phase, it will be accurate for 122 years. Given you have to keep the watch running.
My goodness, that is a long time. Go on, Gianfranco.
And that's not all, because this perpetual calendar has, like all perpetual calendar, has a little kind of mechanical brain inside, which is able to recognize the length of every month, making the difference between 30 and 31 days, and even recognizes the exception on the 28th of February, and every 4 years at midnight we are sleeping. But this little mechanism recognizes I had to add, after 1,460 days, 1 day more for the leap year. Is that not beautiful?
It is absolutely beautiful. And is that what we mean by a perpetual calendar?
Exactly. This is the definition of a perpetual calendar. And that's also the complication chosen by Bulgari in the Octo Finissimo perpetual calendar this year, which launched the thinnest perpetual calendar in the world, the 7th record in this well-presented octo finissimo with a symmetrical dial indicating the weekday, the date, the month, and even the leap year, and all this mechanism in such a thin case.
So in that one, I guess the complication there is the fact that it's this thin.
Exactly, that's really a challenge, and that was really something surprising.
God, it's incredible. You've talked us through those perpetual calendars, beauty, function, the thinness. It strikes me as well, I think we've talked about this, that we could say complication or we could say fascination.
Absolutely.
Gianfranco and Carsten, thank you very much, as ever, for talking us through those incredible watches. We're going now behind the clock face. Well, this is where we invite you to dream. I'm sure you know that by now. In today's first story, we're with Jaeger-LeCoultre and a very special experience that they've created for watch aficionados during the show. Well, now let's take a look at what Zenith has got in store for the owners of vintage watches who might want to give them a makeover. Oh, definitely enough material there to dream. Time now for us to take a look at the panels. I do not need to tell you by now that every afternoon the Fondation is hosting a panel on a different aspect, a different angle of the watchmaking industry. We at the Morning Show take you through the panels. We have a look at yesterday's. We tell you what's coming up today with Pascal Ravessou, who's the Director of External Affairs for the Fondation and a watchmaking expert. Morning to you, Pascal.
Good morning, Belle.
So let's start with yesterday. Yesterday was all about innovation. What came out of that?
Yes, well, first of all, it's Monday morning, but you know, your energy and your outfit certainly help us all to wake up. So
I try.
It's a good energy. So about the panel yesterday, innovation is a tradition in watchmaking. So what are the outcomes from the panel yesterday? Well, first of all, and it's a quite obvious one, technology must be used, to improve the products for the customer. That's pretty obvious. Innovation also enables watchmaking to stay relevant for the younger generation, and that's very important. It must also serve the purpose of amplifying the dream dimension of mechanical watchmaking to perpetuate. And once more, the idea of a collaborative approach was evoked. Like an open source access to innovation. So can we see a pattern here that would be a major innovation for the whole industry?
Oh, that's really interesting stuff. Now today, it's going to be me moderating the panel. So I'm going to
Yes.
be with you here in the studio moderating the panel. So I can already say that we know it's about blockchain, and we're going to be trying to really get to the heart of this matter, aren't we?
Yes, and certainly will be brilliant. And blockchain actually, hopefully we will learn a lot today. Blockchain is, except a few initiatives that are ongoing in the industry, pretty much not widely embraced by the industry. So we'll try to see the state of affairs. There's some questions that we'll try to answer would be, what are the current developments among the brands? What are or can be the various domains of application, and what are the benefits for the industry, but also what would be the benefits for the end consumer? And that's going to be an outlook on what the future could look like.
And who are we going to have discussing that with us?
We'll have Angela Ao-Young, the Chief Digital Officer of Vacheron Constantin. We'll have on this very set Vincent Perriard, the founding partner of Origin and quite a veteran in the industry. We'll have Pierre-Nicolas Hurstel, the CEO of Ariani, a consultant firm in Paris. Serge Maillard, the publisher of Europastar. And also on this very set, Alexandre Verlin, Managing Director of the European Business School in Geneva.
Fantastic stuff. And we should say you're welcome all to join us, because although it's a very technical subject, we are going to be talking to even the most technophobe of people. So it will be open to all, of course, available B2B and then, of course, on replay afterwards. Pascal, thanks so much for talking us through that. For us, I'm afraid our time is over this morning. There's plenty more for you guys to be talking about, though, across the platform through the day. We hope we've given you an idea of what you can be starting with today, and we'll be here same time, same place tomorrow.